Hello and welcome to our first episode of the Herald Hangout. I'm Evan Heichelbech here with WKU President Tim Caboni for our first episode, and we're just going to talk to him about his first few months back on the Hill. So, Dr. Caboni, to start off, if you could tell us about the first job you ever had.
Well, goodness, my first job was in retail, actually. I worked at a place in the mall called Babbage's, and this was in the mid-'80s. And back then you would buy, instead of download it, you'd go buy discs for computer games. And it was a great opportunity for me to, number one, have some work that occurred at night. And so I'd go from my shift 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the evenings. But the other benefit that was probably more important perhaps than money is that I also got to check out computer programs and games and test them out for Babbage's. And so it was kind of a dual win for me, a bit of a computer nerd back then.
So how did you go from the mall store job and why did you end up with a career in higher education?
You know, I started my career, my academic career, thinking that I was going to be a music major and that maybe I'd be a band director or something like that. And somewhere along the way, the folks that taught music at LSU thought maybe it would be a better thing for me not to be a music major. I enjoyed marching, but maybe was not the best instrumentalist in the band. And so that was really a bit of a difficult time for me. I remember getting the letter from my juried performance in the mail saying, you might want to think about other career options other than music. And that required me thinking about what is it that I really wanted to do. If it's not path A, I had no path B. And I remember intently flipping through the paper course catalog, looking at different majors, and one that jumped out at me was actually speech and rhetoric in the speech communications department at LSU. I'd done a great deal of public speaking, both in high school and a little bit in college, and it appealed to me, and I thought, well, we'll give that a try. I like to talk. And it just kind of worked. College experience for me was really important. I was in the honors program at LSU, and Professor Jim Hardy was my honors professor in that first year. And it was really the first time in my life that I thought, wow, being a professor seems like an amazing job. You know, the classes were outstanding. He really challenged us to think deeply in a small group setting. College was such an important part of my life. I've either worked at a university or been a student at a university since I left high school. I've never left the university campus, and it's a great place to be able to spend one's life and one's career.
What are some of maybe the biggest challenges you see WKU students facing either on a daily basis, or you've already talked a little bit long term, so I guess on a daily basis, what are some of the biggest challenges you see Western students facing?
So affordability is always top of mind for me. We know that at commencement every year, 41% of our graduates are first-generation college students. And young people who don't come from means, I want to make sure that we continue to be, as an institution, available to them. We must continue our mission of being an institution of access and an institution of opportunity. But that means that we have to work hard to help young people and their families who may be financially challenged be able to afford a WKU experience. And so I know that our students struggle and piece together their tuition and their room and board by doing lots of different things, getting up early and working, doing what I did and going to the mall and working. And sometimes that can be a real distraction. If you're trying to work 20, 30 hours a week to make ends meet, and you got to go to class full time as well. And so I'm really concerned about that. I think another place that I want to make sure students are getting the support they need is in terms of both their mental health, but also what it means to be a college student. If nobody in your family has ever gone to a university before, how do you figure the place out? It can be daunting on occasion. So as an institution, I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to be open, available, and supportive. We're going to challenge folks, right? But the challenge has to be in the classroom. Everything else needs to be supportive and helping people focus on the learning and the education they want to receive, not creating barriers in other areas.
So sitting down 1 year from now, let's say it's a very successful year, what are some of the components that you wish to have accomplished in order to reach that first successful year?
Well, the most important outcome will be the creation of our new strategic plan. And we've kicked off that effort in the past month. It's going to involve the entire WKU community. And so we have 5 or 6 working groups comprised of volunteers from faculty, staff, students, alumni, administrators, really thinking about not what my vision is for Western Kentucky University, but what is our shared vision and our shared aspiration for this institution. And then working during the next 9 months to build that roadmap for where we want to go. And that's going to require input, not just from the folks in the working groups and the steering committee, but from every one of our constituencies. So our governance organization, staff council, faculty senate, student government association, our students, our faculty and staff writ large, our alumni, but also the local business folks who run companies here in the area. How do we deepen partnerships there? And so at the end of the year, and will be voted on hopefully next summer by the Board of Regents, we'll have a roadmap that leads us through the next decade of growth for WKU.
All right, so the last question I have for you is of high public interest, and that is, how many red bow ties have you added to your closet since you've been back?
Well, as my wife will say, in terms of how many bow ties I have, enough, Tim. You have enough. I'm not sure I ever have enough of them, and goodness, I'd hate to count, but it's an important symbol for me and in some ways for the institution. It makes me, at least in Bowling Green, pretty recognizable, and folks should feel free to come up and introduce themselves to me. And the other is, it's a little less material to hang me with as I'm walking down the corridors if folks want to grab me by the neck. So I have no idea how many I have, but we keep working and adding, and I'm very pleased to say that they're in the bookstore now. I don't think I get a cut for every one sold, but I think bow ties are making a comeback in fashion, certainly here in South Central Kentucky.
Well, Dr. Caboni, thank you very much for your time, and thank everyone for joining us on our first episode of the Herald Hangout.
It's good to be with you.